All right, I'm going to put this up on the screen, guys, and show you what we're looking at this week. So if we go to our class and go to the grade screen, so let me show you this. So see, okay, now my fake student just turned in 1.2. I want to make sure you guys, you probably know this because you've used Buzz before, but if I want to go there and see what I missed, the question tab is right there, and that'll show me all the questions. Okay, did good, because I read the first two questions. And then, oh, see, he said sniffing is the hacking technique that uses network monitoring devices. It should have been shoulder surfing. Oh, I said shoulder surfing, should have been sniffing. See, it tells me what I answered and what the correct answer was. And then what are white hat hackers most known for? Said not getting permission to infiltrate systems when the correct answer is developing important security software. And then it says describe 2 ways that social media's impact cybersecurity. He said badly and goodly and got no points. So when I go back here, this is where I can see the feedback. Badly and goodly, really? That's your answer? You know, that was the feedback. So when you see this little symbol there, that means there's feedback. That means I've typed a message to you just to let you know on your assignment what wasn't good. And so I gave fake student this feedback right here. Badly and goodly, you know, that's a terrible answer for how social media affected. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew where that was. But this week we just have 1.03 computer components. So let's take a look at that real quickly. Computer components. All right. Hardware 101. It's good to understand. Good idea to understand computer basics, to understand how cybersecurity works. So computers consist of hardware and software. Hardware are things you can hold. Software is programs. If you looked inside a desktop or a laptop, you'd find basically the same pieces. You'll find a processor. You'll find some memory, some RAM. You'll find basically the same thing, a fan to cool it off, all those good things. Let's take a look at the image of a computer. And we can learn about more of the parts. So this here is a power supply, right? If we click on that, this is the piece of hardware that converts the power from the outlet into power that the computer needs, usable power. This is the motherboard, right? It'll have all the little circuits on it. This is an essential part of the system. It holds all the components together. It'll have the processor, the central processing unit. It'll have the memory, any connections for any other devices. This over here is the port. That's a connection between the computer and external. Have lots of ports, usually a USB port, maybe an HDMI port, maybe a place to plug a monitor in. So you can connect like hard drives, DVD drives. And then you'll have this, which is a hard drive where data is stored in the computer. It's usually only slightly bigger than your hand, but some of them can hold 100 gigabytes of data. Now, the Chromebooks don't have a big hard drive because they don't store a bunch of stuff on the Chromebook, but generally a computer, you'll see that. So let's move down here. You know, sometimes computers break or just don't run like they should. And system utilities can help diagnose and fix problems with a hard drive or a network, other devices. So Windows comes preloaded with a task manager and it allows users to monitor how things are running. So, all right, let's look and see what we're learning. The inside of your computer, of your machine. So cybersecurity experts must have a clear understanding of how a computer works. So you can check out the following for what happens when computers powered up. So when we hit the power supply, computer loads data from the read-only memory. It has a read-only memory built in there. And it loads the basic input and output from the read-only memory. So the BIOS, and BIOS is a set of computer instructions in the firmware, which means this can't be changed. It's built into the computer that control input and output. It can be updated, but it's going to have that all the time, the BIOS, and that controls input and output. So it has basic information on like what your stored devices, your boot sequence, all that kind of stuff. The operating system. right? Which on your Chromebook is Google Chrome. That's the operating system it runs on. The computer loads the operating system for the hard drive for the system's random access memory. This is memory that's constantly putting things in and pulling things out to run programs. So, on your computers, you may have an Apple computer, which has the operating system from Apple. You may have a Windows computer that has operating system of Windows, whatever the operating system. RAM, when you open an application like a web browser or run a program, it is loaded into the random access memory. And then when it's closed, any files not saved to permanent storage, like a hard drive, are lost. When you close that program, it empties out the RAM. So that's why when you save things, you save them to the hard drive. Or in your Chromebook, it saves it to the cloud, basically your Google Drive, which is in the cloud. Language. The computer needs to know what to do once it loads. It's got to be given a set of instructions to follow. And it looks something like you see on that screen there sometimes. Just as humans speak different languages, there's also a lot of different programming languages. The portion of the language the computer understands is the binary code. That's the ones and zeros. Uses 2 digits, ones and zeros. Translating programming languages in the binary code is known as compiling. So like when you run Windows is a language, but it has to convert everything to ones and zeros for the computer to understand it. Every language from Java to Python has its own features, though many times there's many similarities between languages. Closer look at memory. Have you ever tried to load a device and it took forever to load? Certainly. Chances are it needed more memory. It only had so much memory to work with, so it was having to do a lot of juggling back and forth to load your program. If it has a lot of memory, it'll load faster because it can just throw it all out there at one time. If you didn't have memory, the computer wouldn't even be able to boot up. That takes a lot of memory just to run one application, like your operating system, like Google Chrome. So let's take a closer at the 3 important pieces of memory. Read-only memory, the ROM, allows computers to read the information that's been previously loaded, because this is what it'll access as soon as you hit the power button. That's usually the startup files. So you hit the startup files, it'll go to the read-only memory, which means you can't overwrite this. It's read-only. You can't write to it. You can't, overwrite it. But that's the startup files needed to boot the computer up. It is not dependent on power, because you turn the power off, it still has everything in storage there. Because it needs it when you hit the power button, it needs to know what to do first. So it's not dependent on power. It saves it even when it has no power. And it's referred to as the firmware, because it doesn't need power to keep going. It contains the basic code to get it started. So once the computer is up and running, then the central processing unit takes over. You can click on any of them if you need to know a definition. That's the key component with all the circuitry. We also have random access memory. That's those cards you can put in. You can upgrade the computer by taking out these and putting in bigger RAM. Allows computers to read and write to the memory while the computer is powered on. When you turn it off, the RAM gets emptied because it does not have a way to store it without any power. It is erased when the computer shuts down. And then there's virtual memory. Modern computer applications are complex and take a lot of amount of memory. So that's why there's virtual memory. It uses part of your hard drive actually as memory. It'll put stuff in your hard drive and then pull it back and put it and use it as memory. So that's why when your hard drive gets really, really full on a computer, if you're looking, it's like 98% full, things run real slow because your computer has been using the empty space in your hard drive as memory. Just temporarily store things real fast. And if there's not very much empty space on your hard drive, that really slows down how it can operate. So that's why it's good to clean up your hard drive if it's starting to get full. Go there and find files you don't need and just reorganize it and clean it up. So it temporarily holds data on your hard drive that it would normally be in the memory, but the memory doesn't have enough to store it because programs today are so huge. So, all right. Open source versus proprietary software. Okay, this is different types of things that were developed. Developers develop both open source, which is free software that's distributed with the source code, so end user and organizations and vendors can modify it for their own purposes. It's like, I wrote this, but I don't have a copyright on it. Everyone can use this program, right? It's open source. Everyone can use it for what they need. Proprietary That's paid software. That means I own this software. I wrote it. I have the copyright. If you'd like to use my software, you need to pay me a fee. You need to purchase this from me because it's proprietary. I own that. So ownership of open source is developed and tested through collaboration. Maybe several people wrote it, and it's out there for people to use and change as they need. Proprietary is owned by an individual or an organization. Code in open source is open to anyone to access, inspect, modify, and redistribute the code. But in proprietary software, the owner holds the rights and no one can access it. A lot of times you can't see all of the code in software that you purchase. Management in open source is a community of programmers, and proprietary managed by a closed group of individuals or whoever developed it. The focus on open source is freedom and flexibility to modify, which we encourage you to take this program and make it better. Proprietary focused on a limited market of skilled and unskilled users, right? The focus. Examples: Firefox is open source, GIMP, GNOME, Audacity, Shotcut. But proprietary is like Windows or Mac OS, Adobe Photoshop. Those are all controlled and owned, and you got to pay to use those things. Did you know JavaScript, often abbreviated as JS, is the most popular programming language? More than 60% of programmers around the world use Java. Java, Python, and C Pound now hold the next 3 spots. So Python is the 3rd most popular programming language in the world now. First released in 1995, JavaScript is a scripting programming language that's used mostly to add interactivity to web pages, and 95% of web pages use JavaScript. But that's changing now because JavaScript is starting not to be supported by a lot of browsers. So that may change quickly. Okay, a hacker's goal is to obtain access to secure information that's typically stored in files. That's why files, and I'll give you that, stores of information in a format, need to be saved and organized in a way that minimizes the potential for security breach. All right, so anyone who works with cybersecurity needs to understand how different types of files function to know how each one can be used for good and bad purposes. So let's look at these different formats, and you can read the rest of that. But document files, like doc, a spreadsheet, a PDF. Look at that. Docs are editable document format created by Microsoft using its Word program. PDF is a proprietary document because it's by Adobe Systems. It's compatible with most computer systems. The Adobe Acrobat Reader is the application most commonly used. It's a free software that Adobe has that you can download if you don't have that and read PDFs, which are used on almost all computers. XLS, that's a spreadsheet file format created by Microsoft, used in its Excel. Let's look at image files. GIF, people call it GIF. I call it GIF because it stands for Graphics Interchange Format. So since G is graphics, I say GIF because of what it stands for. They use this compressions of files we viewed on the internet, right? Knows you can put action into a GIF where it's the same little movements over and over. JPEGs are created by the Joint Photographic Expert Group. That's why it's called a JPEG. That's the abbreviation, Joint Photographic Experts Group. It compresses image files for use on the internet. So web browsers can view these, both of these kinds. Let's look at video files, AVI and MP4. It's the most popular ones. AVI, short for audio, video, interlaced. This is a file format used for video, and programs like Windows Media Player and others can play that file. MP4 was created by Moving Picture Expert Group. That's why it stands for their letters. MPEG as a multimedia container format to store audiovisual data. So both of those are video files. And audio files are MP3s, WMAs. MP3 is created by the Moving Picture Expert Group, same folks that did the MP4, as a multimedia container designed to just store audiovisual data. And WMA was developed by Microsoft, an audio file format. Windows Media Audio stores audio bits on a PC. All right, and then our last page, backing up files is important because it prevents risking critical information if your system crashes. But backing up files is not just for organizations. Can you imagine how you feel if you lost all the pictures you're taking? Most people store like their pictures on the computer. When their phone gets full, they move it to the computer, they move it somewhere. And if you lost all those at some point, you lose years and years of memories. What about all the music files that you've purchased? You lost all those. Or that 5-page history research paper you spent a week writing. I have had this experience when I was in college. We had like a 10-page English essay we had to do, and my computer lost it, and I had to retype it the night before it was due. I stayed up all night typing that thing again. I was not as fast at typing then. So making a backup of your files is important, so they're not the mercy of a crash or a lightning strike or a hacker even. So, all right. That's it. Let's look at the assignment that goes with this. I'll change that. It says 1 attempt. I'll change it. You should have multiple attempts there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 multiple choice questions, guys. And like I said, I'll make sure you have more than one attempt at that. So if you missed us the first time, go back and see what you missed. Try it again. I want you to be able to show me you know it, and not just get stuck with one bad answer. So that's it. 8:25, not bad. It was about 20 minutes. I'll let you guys go. If you got questions, you can hang around. But otherwise, have a great week, guys.